day are alive and well in many ways, and that's not going away.
This is the North American Service broadcasting on 17.70, 15.42, 12.05.
Now you will worship him together.
What have you done to its eyes?
You'll be the person sitting by the other voice.
The next time you're frightened in the dark, don't scream.
They are not what they claim to be. You're listening to Radio.
Ooh. It's spooky day.
It's Halloween. It's Halloween.
It's Halloween. And you know what that means?
It's fucking the premiere of season 2 Radio Grave.
That's right. You had your calendar marked. You had it carved into your arm, ready to go, listener. And then you woke up this morning, you had a rock hard boner, immediately released, and then you're like, turn on the computer.
You're like, turn on
Turn on Spotify, let's go.
Literally. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, your mom.
Yeah, your mom. You can listen to this through your mom.
AM radio, pirate radio, in your thoughts.
CB radio.
Telepathically, haunting you. Sleep paralysis demon. Us. Dead.
We wouldn't be bad sleep paralysis demons. I think there could be worse.
For 2 hours.
2 hours just yapping at you about obscure shit.
Bro, but that's the whole point of Radio Grave.
That is. And welcome back. Welcome to season 2. Bitch.
Oh my God, bitches. Oh God, my thing went black. Ow. Ow. Okay. I'm okay.
Going good so far.
It's all right. It's all right. Holy shit, you guys. I'm here with Dom.
I'm here with Amber.
And we're ready to make you come, I guess.
Yeah, we're back better than ever.
Back better than ever.
Rock hard.
Rock hard. I want to say, just to preface, this is going to be a longie. Long and hard.
A longie but a goodie.
Longie but a goodie.
You know what jelking is?
When you pull on your wiener to make it bigger, but it just makes it so it doesn't work anymore.
Yes. This is not a jelk episode. This is not a jelk maxing episode.
What is it?
This is just a long good episode.
A long good episode.
Yep.
Just like season 1, we did a long episode for Hinterkaifeck, which I feel like a lot of people had to keep coming back to. I'm sorry that happened, but like I can't help it. When we decided to make this our premiere episode, we knew.
Deep down in the loins.
Deep down in the loins. And this is going to be completely different than everything that we did from season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Completely different. So what are we doing?
So we are doing basically a story of demon possession, but not just any story. This comes from the heart of the motherland, my motherland that I've never been to. Sorry, Mom. The Philippines.
Yeah, sorry, Jerry.
My mom being the Philippines. Jerry. Sorry about that. Hope she never hears this.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
To your mom.
It's not her birthday.
Oh.
So we're going to be telling you about a demonic possession from Manila in the Philippines, which is where my grandparents are from. And it takes place while they were still there, actually. I think they came to America in like the late 50s, early mid 60s. I don't know, but my mom was born in America in 69. So it was shortly before that.
That's hot.
Yeah, so 69. Ew. So yeah, so my grandparents would have been around for this. They would have been in the same area. Unfortunately, my grandma is dead, and then her husband, my grandpa, has fucking Alzheimer's dementia cocktail. So I could be like, hey, do you remember this? And he'll be like, I love golfing. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, word.
Who are you?
He's like, can we go to the casino?
Yeah, let's go.
I'm like, okay. He's like, you wait in the car. I'm like, oh.
Rolls up the windows.
Word, Grandpa. Yeah, no. Last time I visited them, we did that. We went to a casino city up in the mountains in Colorado.
Yeah.
And they left me in the car with an iPod for like 4 hours. And mind you, I was like 19. I was not like a child. But they just like, yeah, they just like left me in the car.
You're like, sweet.
And I'm like sitting there.
Cigarettes secretly.
No, I couldn't smoke the whole time I was there. So I'm like having nicotine withdrawals. I was like, I'm still having elevation sickness from the plane. I'm like,
I remember that. And then you came back with like your hair cut super short and a gold chain.
Yeah, thanks, Grandma.
And she's like, don't be gay.
Yeah, she's like, don't be gay, no be poor, bitch.
And then like
How do you-
literally cuts your hair like a boy.
No, I did that.
Oh.
I did that like right before I left.
Oh shit. I thought you did it when you were there.
No.
No, you would never do that.
No, she would have been mad.
Yeah. Well, rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Gertrude. She might chime in. I might channel her. We'll see. This is demonic.
She loves that.
She would hate that.
Well, yeah.
She'd be like, don't speak this into existence.
No speak.
You're bringing
No speak.
a swung into your heart.
Literally.
I'm
Probably.
like, okay, Grandma.
If
buy
you
me more
believe it'll
gold.
come.
What?
If you believe it'll come.
I believe in cum.
No.
So, one thing is that, and you can kind of speak on this more than me.
Sure.
The first season of Radio Grave, I think the majority, other than Fukushima toilet mystery, the majority of the cases that we went over were all Western or, Eurocentric kind of cases.
Yeah.
And you got some feedback on that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I did. We received some feedback on the Instagram from a really good friend of mine named Kylie. And they were like, next season, I would just like to hear more stuff from around the world. And I was like, I can do that. So that's what we did for this season.
You're like, you're in luck. One of them's brown.
You're in luck.
Hey.
And we have like a huge variety too this year. Okay, there are a ton of aliens. But
Yes.
we just so you know, we got another twins coming. We have more. We have coming. Like CUMMING.
Yeah, like
coming.
jizz.
Yeah, like jizz coming. And then
My first ever document that I've written for the series is at the end.
that's true finale.
Yeah, and it's like really history heavy, which is not like my thing,
No.
but it's worth it.
It's gonna be amazing. I'm gonna come. There's gonna be more coming. So, anyways, yes.
Over 70 years ago, a young woman in Manila, the Philippines, motherland, represent, she fell victim to a strange possession, and her suffering was so severe that it became widespread news. But today, strangely, her exorcism case remains to be a bit of an obscure mystery. We're talking about the 1953 exorcism of Clarita Villanueva, one of the most well-documented possession cases in demonology, and a case that is notably unique, blended with elements of local culture, religion, and psychology. Today, her case is considered to be wildly significant in Filipino history, and it's believed to be completely true across the country, generally, but it's not entirely recognized in the West. Overshadowed by the popularity of Eurocentric cases like the exorcism of Anneliese Michel in Germany, or the possession of Ronald Doe.
Ronald McDonald Doe.
Or the possession of Roland Doe, both of which inspired Hollywood movies. The possession of Clarita Villanueva remains controversial and complex, but it is without a doubt absolutely terrifying.
Absolutely. When I first heard about this story, I was kind of skeptical. And then when I read more and more and more, and I looked at the photos, I was like shocked. It is a crazy story. But before we can even get into the story itself, I think we need to set the scene for the Philippines in 1953 in Manila, because it plays a huge role. We need to understand the culture at that time and what was happening, especially post World War II. The Philippines was undergoing significant social, economic, and political changes. It was also a period marked by hostile political instability, which comes with war. So the Philippines gained independence in 1946 with the help of the United States. But that independence followed a period of American colonization.
Of course.
So during this colonization and this occupying time, we're moving into the Korean War. So there were a lot of soldiers and Navymen like stationed in the Philippines too. It was a very, very heavy presence and cultural presence. So they faced an internal communist insurgency. And that was led by the communist group. Help.
Hukbalahap. Hukbalahap.
Hukbalahap. But they also are just called the Hooks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I was the Hooks. Mm-hmm. So Hukbalahap. Mm-hmm. Easy. I knew how to say that the whole time. And this movement had roots in anti-Japanese guerrilla activities during World War II.
Same.
And so it continued as a significant rebel force opposing the government. They were fighting against Japanese occupation and invasion. And then like the Filipino Democratic was like established and they were like, no, we don't like this either. So amidst this, the economy was actually recovering, which also this happened in Japan too. So they heavily relied on agricultural exports like sugar and coconut products, but industrialization was developing, but kind of slowly. Poverty and unemployment was still super widespread, especially in the capital city of Manila, because it had been heavily bombed during the war and was in heavy post-war reconstruction, heavy. And many struggled to survive. But still, Manila experienced a significant migration from rural areas. Rural life was extremely rough, and oftentimes these people were displaced over and over and over again. And so if you can't settle to work in agriculture because you keep getting displaced because of the war, you're just going to go into the cities. And people sought better employment and living conditions in these cities. And so there's this idea of like, I can go into the city and I can get a job doing some sort of industrial work, but you get there and then it's not there. There were more people than jobs. And the overpopulation obviously led to inadequate housing, poor sanitation, and a lack of public services. So obviously this contributed to social issues, including high rates of crime and, quote, vagrancy, which was unfairly punished with excessive force.
Quick note. So this time period is around when my grandmother and grandfather would have left to America. And they never talked about like why exactly they left, but they loved Duterte. At least my grandma.
Duterte?
Yeah. You know, he has like the death squads and stuff. Mm-hmm. If you like look like you're a drug dealer, they can just like shoot you down in the street.
Yeah.
Grandma loved him. So that's probably why she left, because of the conflict.
Probably.
And just because she was a more upper class person. In fact, my grandfather was one of the kind of like a butler, like a housekeeper guy for her family. Mm-hmm. That's how they met. And then he courted her for like ages. And her dad was in politics. So I can see why they...
Yeah, left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because she wouldn't want to be around all these rural people.
Yeah.
And obviously things were still war-stricken. And
so bad. And also there was an insane socioeconomic divide where there were people living on the streets and dying in the streets.
And then there's my grandma.
And then there's like plantation owners, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're basically plantation owners.
From what I've somewhat heard, that was kind of the vibe.
Yeah.
As happy and kind and beautiful the Filipino people are, it's a very black and white society from what I understand.
Oh, yeah.
Culturally, from everything I've seen, everyone I've spoken to from within my family, it's just like, you're good, you're bad.
Yeah.
If you're bad, you're very bad.
And that's like, that'll be apparent.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this very soon. With it being a black and white culture, it is split down the middle. But also, America's occupying, there's all these whites in the Philippines, there's white politics, and American influence was seen in education and way of life and law. But like their identity and heritage was still growing rapidly too. So there was a huge like blow up of like art and music during this era. So like even with the American colonization, with everything on the rise and the tumultuous everything, like there was still a huge growing Pinoy pride at this time. But like to totally address the elephant in the room, Catholicism plays a huge role in Filipino culture. So I'm not Catholic. I'm also not Filipino. So like, I honestly like had a hard time, not even understanding, but like reading through, because some of the sources that I had were like very weird, which like I don't really list them as sources because I just ended up being like, no, I just threw it out. But like they would say things like Catholicism was a result of the legacy of Spanish colonization, kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll just kind of be cut and dry when it comes to the religious stuff, because I shit on Catholicism, but I don't know anything about Filipino Catholicism. I know it's kind of different.
Yeah, I mean, there's the cultural kind of divide. I mean, that's pretty blatant between like an American Catholic or an Irish Catholic and a Filipino Catholic. They're
all different.
They come off very different. And I was raised by Filipino Catholics.
Yeah.
And then my mom converted because she married my dad.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it's I don't know. It is a very different vibe with different maybe different emphases on different things. Kind of more Filipino cultural traditions and beliefs and things. Obviously, that's going to be a huge part of this episode. Melded with a I guess like a traditional Catholicism.
Right.
I think that Europeans or Westerners would find very different. But yeah, go on.
Okay. Sorry. I'm like, I'm just too nervous. I don't want to sound like racist or like I hate
I'm going to be
cats.
racist.
Okay, that's you do it. I don't. Well, you know, I just
Don't bring up Japan.
Well, I mean, it's going to be hard. Japan plays a huge role in this too. Just their
Of course
overall,
they do.
their
Of course
overall
they do.
presence during the war is like crazy. So, anyways, I feel like colonization tends to eradicate, and like Filipino people
Are stubborn as shit.
Pinoy people are super stubborn.
Yeah, I mean, because they have these old beliefs that are, being passed down forever and ever and ever. And then they're introduced to Catholicism and they're like, ooh, I like that too.
They're like, I like some of this stuff.
But I'm not getting rid of the old stuff. That's mine.
Overall, the Philippines in 1953 was a country with strong religious beliefs and a growing pride. They were navigating the complexities of post-colonial independence and economic recovery and cultural renewal, all set against the backdrop of global geopolitical tension. I think that's the best way to sum it up. It is in this time that we meet an 18-year-old girl doing everything she can to survive in Manila.
Clarita Villanueva was born in 1935 near Bacolod. That's the capital city of the province of Negros Occidental, also known as the Sugar Bowl of the Philippines. Clarita was the youngest of 4 children, and she was the only girl. Her life had been marked by hardship from the beginning. Her family lived in abject poverty, and her mother was known to be a quote-unquote spiritualist. They made ends meet with the mother telling fortunes and conducting seances, and the father was absent.
Just a note, like how we talked about the blending of cultures, seances and talking to the dead and shit like that. Like for her to just be like, yeah, I'm a spiritualist. It's just like, Slay, can I like hire you?
Yeah, there was a Ouija board at my grandma's house, and she was super Catholic.
Why'd she have that?
Don't know. Why is she dead now? No, I'm just kidding. Because she's old.
God. Oh my God.
But yeah. So they're telling fortunes, doing seances. No dad. It's likely that her family was displaced during World War II. For several years, the region had been under constant conflict between Imperial Japanese forces and the Negrinese guerrilla resistance, and this forced people to seek refuge. Clarita's family had to survive in the city as much as possible. Although the Negrinese resistance was victorious in 1946, post-conflict, Bacolod was in shell shock. An economic disparity became very apparent in the province between wealthy sugar plantation owner type people and laborers.
So like your grandma's dad?
And everyone else.
And
the
your grandma
dirt poor. And my grandpa.
And then your grandpa.
Yeah, who was their houseboy, essentially. In 1947, at 12 years old, Clarita was officially orphaned. Her mother passed away. The cause of death is unknown, but shortly after, her brothers abandoned her completely in Bacolod. Bacolod. I'm not really sure how it's pronounced, but we're doing our best over here.
I think that is.
Bacolod. Clarita's status as a vulnerable orphan made her obviously susceptible to exploitation, and these circumstances forced her into child prostitution. She lived on the streets of Bacolod for a while, living a high-risk lifestyle, surviving by engaging in petty crimes and vagrancy, and into her developed teen years, she became a dance hostess in bars. Simultaneously, she was a sex worker. She eventually decided to run away from Bacolod. Family had speculated in the past that her father was alive and well, and that he was successfully living in Manila. So with nothing to lose, she traveled 450 miles to Manila. She hoped to find her father and thought maybe he would take care of her. At this time, Manila's population was 1.5 million, and it was clear it was going to be very hard to find him. So once again, in Manila, she was homeless. Eventually, she was hired as a maid, more likely an indentured servant, and life as a servant didn't last long, and it ended poorly. She fell in love and ran away from being a maid, and she eloped with this man in hopes of becoming a housewife, but she soon discovered he was already married and had 4 children, so their relationship ended. At only 18 years old, once again, she was living on the streets, and she took on the lifestyle of taxi dancing. And taxi dancing is dancing with men for money. So every night, all night long, she danced, which is very hard work, and she soon was back to prostitution and vagrancy. This is where the story begins.
So on May 6th, Clarita was arrested for soliciting sex to an undercover officer. So she was taken to Manila's Old Bilibid prison to be detained, basically, and await trial. Old Bilibid is fucked. Some of this stuff is like kind of intense when I was researching it, so trigger warning. Old Bilibid had a long and notorious reputation for being a hellscape penal facility. It was established in 1847 during the Spanish colonial period, and by the 20th century, it had grown to be a 6-acre penal facility. We were looking at pictures of it earlier. Mm-hmm. It's insane. The compound is...
It looks just like that, a compound. Like it's very industrial, very...
It's like shaped in a circle.
Yeah, it's like a huge... If you imagine like a military base that's just gigantic.
Yeah. 6 acres. And so because of its fucking size, it just made the buildings really difficult to upkeep. So parts of it were actually like dilapidated and inhospitable. So there were extremely poor conditions alongside that. And it was incredibly overcrowded and unsanitary. It's a huge penal facility that can hold a shit ton of inmates, but it's falling apart and there's way more people than there's supposed to be in there. It's a lot of fucking prisoners. And overcrowding led to rampant and uncontrollable violence between inmates and with officers. So obviously this led to corruption and abuse of power. So sexual assault and cruel and unusual punishment was regular. In 1940, instead of restoring and reforming Old Bilibid, a new prison was built 16 miles away in Muntinlupa. Mm-hmm. Muntinlupa. And they just named this New Bilibid prison. So it was built in an attempt to alleviate the overcrowding. I think it was supposed to be like a quick fix. Mm-hmm. And that did work for a little bit, but it did not change the fact that the living conditions in Old Bilibid were the same. Maybe there were less people, but it was still falling apart. Everyone was still sick. So during World War II, overcrowding became an issue again, because this was during Japanese occupation. So Filipino prisoners of war and just like anyone that they like deemed to be an issue, they were just throwing in there, and horrors were committed there, a lot of torturing. By the 1950s, the prison conditions were more or less the same, even though that Japanese occupation had ended and they were under American occupation, basically. It was filled with both hardened criminals and those with minor offenses. And this kind of comes back to the black and white that we spoke about, where you're a criminal, regardless of what you did, you're all the same and you're all bad.
Yeah, I will say, as a quick note, I recently watched a documentary about different prisons around Asia, and one of the worst was the Philippines. I don't think it was Manila, but it was a fairly populated area, and it was very similar to what is described here in this episode. Things have not changed a ton. It's still very overcrowded, a lot of violence. You know how in those PETA videos, there's like cages of chickens?
Yeah.
And they're all just shoved in. Imagine that, but it's people.
Yeah.
So they're like, they have to lay or sit, and there's just layers of people.
Yeah.
And it's all kinds of people. Like you said, it's murderers and it's thieves. People who look like they might be murderers and thieves. Like,
Right.
you know.
Or people accused.
Right. There are like groups of prisoners that are basically just, they like run the prison. Bad penal conditions. I mean, I'm sure there are probably decent jails and prisons there, but
Oh yeah, I'm sure now. Yeah.
but this
Absolutely.
was definitely not anomalous or like shocking to
No.
anyone at the time.
No. And it was like accepted very much so.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
where
they're
you
like, oh,
deserve
it's
to
prison.
be.
Yep.
Yeah. I think also what makes it worse about Old Billy Bid is that it housed men and women. And unfortunately, there were also children there. Because if there were women there who had children,
The children live there.
the children lived there. If they even could have given birth there, but there were men and women there. I think they were separated, but like that just leads to fucking disaster. So everyone's still overcrowded. There's poor sanitation and hygiene issues. So there's the spread of disease. Inmates had inadequate medical care. Deaths were common. So sickly conditions, a severe lack of order, and overall violence in Old Billy Bid made it hell on earth. So the only relief available, really, within the prison was spiritual relief. Given the strong influence of Catholicism, religious practices and beliefs permeated the prison environment. So this included the presence of chaplains and religious services. So there were holy men at the prison all the time. But like if you got like pneumonia, you might not like see a doctor very quickly and you could just maybe die. So although Clarita Villanueva's crimes were by no means severe, her punishment was. She was forced into a dirty, cold cell with 2 other women as she awaited trial. And her trial date was set for May 27th. So 21 days. So for 2 days, she kept to herself. But on the 3rd night, May 9th, that's when the strange happenings started.
If you enjoy our podcast, please rate, review, and consider becoming a patron by visiting patreon.com/radiograve. Your patronage and support helps us continue to make content for you. You can stay up to date with us by following our Instagram account at Radio Grave Podcast, and be sure to tell all your spooky friends about us too. Thanks for listening. Now back to the show. So on the 3rd night, Clarita woke suddenly along with her 2 cellmates to a rain of strange tapping sounds. They realized the sound was stones hitting the floor of their cell, and the stones were coming from an unknown source, seemingly forming from out of nowhere, possibly through the bars of the cell or from the ceiling. A guard would quickly approach their cell, threatening them and telling them to go back to sleep. The other 2 cellmates fell asleep quickly, but Clarita tossed and turned in her bed, disturbed by the spooky incident. Suddenly, she felt like she was being watched. Staring up at the dark ceiling, she realized there were eyes looking back down at her from the dark beams of the cell. No more than a few seconds later, Clarita was attacked for the first time. According to Clarita, the figure jumped down from the beams onto her chest, held her down with 2 cold hands, paralyzing her. And then another entity suddenly appeared, and both began to savagely bite her. She screamed out in pain, waking her cellmates, and as they woke, she was no longer paralyzed. She thrashed and screamed, scaring the cellmates, and they desperately called for help. The guard returned to find this chaotic, confusing scene. When the guard asked her what happened, she told him she was being attacked by 2 men. But this was impossible because she was in a secured women's ward. The guard quickly examined her body and discovered she was actually covered with deep, completely circular bite marks all over her neck, shoulders, and upper arms. There were 2 rows of teeth, but the bites looked both human and animal. The guard knew the other women didn't attack her. They were just as afraid and confused as Clarita. Clarita continued to violently thrash, convulse, and cry, and she screamed over and over that men had attacked her. Unsure of what to do, the guard called for help, and quickly came the president. Quickly came the prison sergeant Guillermo Abad.
Guillermo Abad.
But he's a bad.
Abad.
Meanwhile, she suddenly began babbling between screams, sounding like she was speaking in tongues. Allegedly, at times, her voice didn't sound like her own. And she also spoke extreme blasphemy. So if you think about in the exorcism, your mother sucks cocks in hell.
Fuck me.
Your cunting daughter. Like that shit.
Yeah. Fuck her in the cow's ass or whatever it says. It's like crazy.
Good shit.
It's like holy shit.
So probably stuff like that.
Yeah. And also like
just foul.
Just foul. Foul and shocking, I think, to everyone around her.
So at first glance, Sergeant Abad was not convinced by Clarita's episode. However, he too found himself disturbed as he examined the bite marks. Within only a few minutes, the bites developed into circles of blistering bubbles.
Yeah, they went from being teeth indentations that were like moist, literally, to like burns.
Yeah, like
boiling
boils.
Burns. Yeah.
Sergeant Abad demanded her to tell him what really happened. What men had attacked her. And Clarita claimed that she was attacked by a thing. It was a manifestation of 2 twisted and grotesque men. Had she bitten herself for attention? Was she trying to frame her cellmates by claiming they were imposters from the men's ward? Or maybe she was suffering from an invisible spiritual attack.
Right. They were like, obviously the wounds are real.
Yeah.
But like, where did they come from?
Yeah. But then, something impossible occurred. More bite marks began to manifest. Bruises also began to just appear. Clarita continued to scream and sob and convulse.
So when they found her, she had bite marks on her. And then in front of their eyes, they began to boil. And then they're looking at her, freaking out, screaming and babbling and speaking blasphemy. And as she is, more bite marks are appearing out of thin air on her.
And bruises.
Quickly developing bruises.
Well, by 2:30 a.m., Sergeant Abad called for backup. And this was the prison chaplain, Father Benito Vergez. He arrived first. Then there was the prison medic, Dr. Angelo Singhian. He was the first assistant medical examiner. He showed up not long after. And he was accompanied by his brother, Colonel Cesar Lucero, who was the Manila chief of police. Upon their arrival, her erratic behavior diminished. Once she was lucid, they asked Clarita to describe the 2 men who attacked her. She went on to describe this thing in detail. The first man who had pounced her was a short, grotesque, creature-like man with a, quote, angelic face with large eyes. He had white hair and a large mustache with a snarling mouth of sharp teeth. The second man who appeared was even scarier. He was an evil, angry-faced man who also had very large eyes, but was very tall and shadowy, quoted to be dressed in black.
Men in Black? No, I'm kidding.
Just wait till later in the episode, in the season, you get many Men in Black.
Literally.
But no, not a Men in Black, because he appeared to be covered with curly dark hair.
Like an ape?
Like an ape man. Like a skunk ape.
Yeah.
He had a long beard, quote, like a Hindu. So just
that's what she said, not me. Yeah.
And then feet that were, quote, 3 times larger than a man's.
So ape man.
Yeah, it's an ape man. Allegedly, this second man spoke to her, but his words are unknown. Totally limp and exhausted, she was taken away from her cell to be isolated and further examined. Altogether, Clarita's attack had 7 witnesses, 2 cellmates, 1 guard, Sergeant Abad, Father Benito Vergez, Dr. Angela Singyan, and Colonel Cesar Lucero. It's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's like a ton of people, considering the fact that maybe the 3 that are the least reliable would be the 2 cellmates in the guard.
Right. Yeah,
And
the others, people would take their experiences seriously.
a little more seriously. And also, like, these are people in power.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to play into something that might
Yeah, that
remove
some
them
cellmates
from
just made up.
a power position. Like,
Right. And once Clarita was isolated and examined by the doctor and the chaplain, they found out that she had endured 20 separate bites, all blistering, and there was bruising all over her body, and she had dilated pupils.
which is interesting.
Yeah. It was agreed that something medically strange had happened to Clarita, but her wounds didn't seem to be physically possible. Dr. Singyan was still skeptical. However, the chaplain concluded that her attack was the result of something far more sinister, and that she had fallen victim to spiritual oppression, tormented by demonic entities from hell.
That was quick. News of Clarita's demonic attack at the old Billy-Bid prison spread immediately. An anonymous employee broke the story to the press. So, the fucking guard or the chaplain, I'm sure. So the first article appeared within less than 24 hours. And the article described the attack in detail. You want to read this?
With or without an accent.
Sure.
Okay, it read, When the girl is attacked, she appears to cower before an invisible monster. Stark terror is mirrored in her dilated eyes. Then she screams in blood-curdling agony. Tears stream down her face, and then the thing apparently lets go as she literally wilts to the floor. Sometimes she does not need to point to the fresh teeth marks on her arms or neck because the bites are too pronounced to escape notice.
Was this racist to do it like this?
I'm Filipino. I can do it.
Okay.
I'm allowed.
I'm like, you want to read it in the voice?
Do the voice.
So yeah, the anonymous reporter claimed that the thing responsible was, quote, like the wind. The wind cannot be seen, but it can inflict physical damage.
Very poetic.
Very
Good
poetic,
work.
but also like kind of creepy.
Yeah.
So obviously this implied that the attack was supernatural, and it was nothing else but being supernatural. So obviously the public was captivated. Like, this is fucking crazy. Literally the entire city of Manila, 1.2 million people were talking about this. And it caused an insane amount of discourse and paranoia, obviously. So it was believed to be like a genuine case of demonic possession. And many had concerns about their spiritual welfare. They were like, oh shit, am I going to be demonic possessed? Mm-hmm. Like, have I prayed enough? Like,
yeah.
Is this going to happen to me? So like sinful lifestyles were blamed to have caused the possession. They were like, well, obviously, like, she's possessed because she's a sex worker or, So this just sparked conversations about the need for stronger faith in society. So amen. It's going to bring power to our youth. So it's like she's attacked in this terrible way. And they're like, well, she was a prostitute. So
don't be a prostitute.
So like, if you become a prostitute, not only are you going to become possessed, but we're going to like
demonize you.
We're going to demonize you. Yeah. So within only a week, news of the, quote, vampire girl had spread around the world. There were a ton from Australia, which is strange. But it did make it to the US, and it did spread across Asia as well. Meanwhile, like, people are talking shit about her. Things are just not improving for Clarita, like, whatsoever. When she wasn't under attack, she was kind of deemed to be a childlike person. Uneducated, childish, but people said that she was polite. Mm-hmm. And when she did have her fits, she was super erratic and agitated, just scream and speak in tongues. Some people claim that she spoke in other foreign languages that she didn't know. And obviously she spoke blasphemy. She convulsed and she thrashed, and more bite marks would appear. It's like continuous. Like she just was obviously like under oppression. It's unbelievable. So eventually Clarita was able to explain more to doctors about what was happening to her. This didn't begin in prison. This has happened before. And allegedly, she claimed to have had a spiritual attack the Sunday before her arrest on May 3rd. According to Clarita, she was in the company of other people when she was overcome with anger for like no reason. And she attempted to smash a Virgin Mary statuette that was in the room. And her friends restrained her before she could destroy the religious figure. She was like, I'm going to fucking smash this thing. And they're like, please don't. Like, that's my thing.
Dude, insert clip here of Zach Bagans entering a place and being like, I just want to kill you. I just want to choke you right now.
I just want to choke you.
I don't know what's going on, man. I gotta go outside.
I got just a real bad rage. I just wanted to grab you by your throat and tear your esophagus out. But listen to me. I'm fine right now. I'm fine right now, okay? Come here. Don't go away from me. I don't want to do that right now. I just wanted to grab you by your throat and tear your...
Or literally, fucking, they go in and they find the Jesus statuette without a head, and he's like, he's decapitated.
Statue of Jesus is falling over. His head's right there. What the hell? That's his head. There's the head of Jesus right there. Decapitated. Wow.
Or like they go to the Italian fucking island prison, and they're there and there's like a dead pig in like a well with a frog on top of it. And they're like,
dude, what the There's a dead pig in it. Are you kidding me? On top of it. That's messed up.
That's not a good thing, honestly.
What? I'll include some Zach Bagans action. I'll also include some alleged audio clips of her having attacks.
Of Clarita?
Yeah, I think
wow.
so.
So you can play those back to back and just see which one seems more legitimate.
Yeah, I can play Clarita's in reverse and see if it's like, my name is Zach Bagans. I never believe. Okay, so let's move on.
Shit.
Unable to bring a real explanation to the table, doctors they could not figure out a diagnosis. Many believe she was experiencing stress-induced epileptic attacks, which is pretty common. Not the attacks itself, but with demon possession, epilepsy. And some believe the wounds were self-inflicted whilst in confused fits of random insanity. One doctor simply diagnosed her as just being malnourished. Which is like, what?
That, my grandma'd probably agree.
She's like, she just needs to eat more.
It's like, just make her like 4 breakfasts. She'll be fine.
They're like, she's malnourished. That's why she's acting like that.
She didn't have enough dinner.
She's speaking like German. Like,
oh my God, did you eat yet?
Yeah.
Why are you acting like that?
Yeah, literally.
Did you have a coffee, a Coca-Cola, an orange juice, and a bottle of water with your breakfast?
If you're going to take your SATs today, they said that you should eat oatmeal because oatmeal is like brain food.
I'm also going to
Did you know that, Clarita?
Clarita, did you have oatmeal and sausage and tomatoes and fried rice and bacon and eggs and some leftovers from yesterday?
Do you think people ate oatmeal in the 1950s in the Philippines?
My grandma liked oatmeal, but I think that's because she's old.
I like oatmeal.
I literally have a packet of oatmeal in my bag right now.
Ooh, we're oatmeal
thinking
queens.
About eating it later.
Anyway, yeah. So one doctor just said she's just malnourished, but a present military doctor from a lunatic hospital concluded that she was in like a hysterical fugue state. So if you've never heard of like what a fugue state is, it's a period of loss of awareness of one's identity. And it's associated with certain forms of hysteria and epilepsy, where people will go into fugue states and they will leave their houses and they'll just drive around and go somewhere. And then they'll be like sitting in a like a creak in the middle of the night, and then they'll come out of their fugue state and be like, "Ah!"
Yeah, I mean, like if
That's like, yeah.
I think a lot of people are familiar with the like what dissociation is, but imagine dissociation to a fucking extreme.
Yeah.
That's what a fugue state is.
Yeah. Where like you blink and then like when you open your eyes, you're in a creek.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night. Confused. Yeah. Going into a fugue state is actually pretty rare.
Yes.
It's not like a very common
There is
thing.
real quick. I did watch another documentary about this woman who I think she went missing like 3 times.
Oh my God. Is that blonde lady?
I believe she was blonde.
Yeah.
But she would go into a fugue state, be gone, appear, and then be like, "Hi, it's me." And they're like, "Where have you been?" She's like, "What?"
Yeah.
And then I think the last time they never found her.
So fucked.
Yeah. But it's like that. I can't imagine how scary that is.
God, I hope that never happens to us. So altogether, it was assumed that Clarita's traumatic upbringing was to blame for these, I guess, conniptions that she was having. So a vagrant girl wandering Manila with a sinful lifestyle, plus the stress of her incarceration, were considered to be all triggers that resulted in these attacks.
Fair enough, I guess.
Right. Kind of psychosomatic. I feel like that makes sense.
Sure.
And I feel like also that's a pretty advanced like diagnoses for this time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so.
Yeah. Because if she was in America, they just would have like sedated
hysterical.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, but they just were like actually checking her out.
Yeah, like, oh, trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and this is just the first time that she's visited by doctors.
Yeah.
Like, we'll talk about it more because this isn't going to end anytime soon. So, traumatic upbringing, psychosomatic attack. It didn't really explain her wounds. They also weren't able to discount the 7 credible witnesses, or at least 5 or 4 credible witnesses with testimonies from the night of May 9th. By May 13th, she had developed a high fever and was in a trance-like state. And she was set to be released from Old Bilibid and moved to San Lazaro Hospital. The whole event had brought a lot of unwanted attention to the already infamous Old Bilibid prison. So they were like, "Get her the fuck out of here. Like, we don't want anything." Like, they're like, "We can't like handle this situation." Yeah. It also should be mentioned that San Lazaro is like a lunatic hospital. So she was released, but it was short-lived, and she was returned within hours with a higher fever and still in a trance-like state. Dr. Mariano Lara, chief medical examiner of Old Bilibid, called upon over 30 colleagues to examine Clarita. Dr. Mariano Lara had not seen Clarita yet.
Okay.
The other doctor that saw her, he worked under Dr. Lara.
Okay.
But Dr. Lara hadn't seen her yet. So I think maybe he was the one who said that she had to come back before he could even release her. He's like, "Don't get her out of here. I need to check her out." He would say, now I'm like, shit, should you read all the quotes? I don't think so. No. This is too much.
That's a long one.
This is a huge one. So he would say, quote, "Equipped with a magnifying lens and with an unbelieving mind about this biting phenomena, I carefully exposed parts of her body in order to find whether they had the biting impressions. I saw the reddish human-like bite marks on the arms. She was still soft in the entire body and could not stand up by herself. One of my assistants, a cadaver technician named Alfonso, helped Alfonso, the cadaver examiner.
Alfonso.
Alfonso?
Alfonso.
I'm not going to say that.
Alfonso.
I think you can say that.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So Alfonso.
No.
So he would say, cadaver technician named Alfonso helped carry her to a bed for her to rest during the state of partial trance. Alfonso deposited her on the prepared bed, placing her hands over her chest so they would not hang downward. And at that very instant, this girl in a semi-trance loudly screamed in pain, repeating the word awry. And awry is an English word.
'Tis.
Clarita did not speak English.
No, sir.
No, only Tagalog. So Continued. When I removed Alfonso's hand from Clarita's, I saw with my unbelieving eyes the clear and moist impressions of human-like teeth from both the upper and lower jaws on her left hand. And the teeth impressions were mostly from the form of the front or incisor teeth. Like a double overbite.
Oh my God.
Heart. So, continued, I could not understand nor explain how they were produced, as her hand had all the time been held away from the reach of her mouth, and that the place where the bite impressions occurred on her hand was the very place held by my assistant Alfonso. But did Alfonso, the cadaver technician, bite her? Well, no.
I don't think so.
No. I knew she could not by herself, nor could Alfonso, who coincidentally does not possess a single tooth.
Me as fuck.
I don't want to be rude, but like that's the most Filipino thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
He's a cadaver, a cadaver technician
named Alfonso with no teeth.
With no teeth. He's like, I didn't do it.
What about your dentures, Alfonso? I don't have them on me. He had
recently had them extracted by a dentist, according to Dr. Lara. So maybe they didn't fall out, but they were like taking them all out. Maybe. So I don't know. So he would say, continued, as far as my human experience and medical training is concerned, I am unsure. My mouth is shut, but not my mind. The Manila Chronicle published an article with the headline, Police Medics Probe Case of Girl Bitten by Devils.
Nice.
The article would say, quote, police medical investigators failed to give a convincing explanation to the puzzling case of the girl who claimed she was being attacked by demons, and who substantiated the claim with marks on her skin. At least 25 competent persons, including Chief of Police Colonel Cesar Lucero, say it is a very realistic example of a, quote, horrified woman being bitten to insanity by invisible persons.
That's wild.
Like, this is in the newspaper.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The chief of police is saying this. Chief medical examiner, people who work for the prison, chaplains.
They're like, yeah, she being bitten by demons.
Alfonso.
Everyone's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, literally.
So days later, Chief Jailer Captain Antonio Guinibi had a strange interaction with Clarita. He was the overseer of her case. He had direct orders to supervise Clarita at all times, especially during medical examinations. The afternoon of May 15th, Clarita had a medical examination, and that evening, Captain Guinibi had taken Clarita to his office.
For what reason? I don't know. I think that's fucking weird. Why back to your office?
I mean, maybe he had to grab something. Maybe he had to write something down. Maybe he wanted to ask her some stuff in his office. I don't know. Then again, it's old Billy B. So maybe for assault. Don't know.
I have a theory that we're going to talk about later about Guinibi and maybe this situation that we're going to cover.
Okay. According to him, Clarita was, quote, playing, crawling around on the floor and under his desk.
She's like 18, by the way.
Yeah, and like going nuts.
And like possessed by demons.
In prison, so yeah, that's whatever.
Crawling around on the floor.
She asked if he knew where her crucifix necklace was. Maybe she had like lost it while she was playing on the floor. So she's like, where's my necklace? He said he didn't know. She asked him to inspect his pockets. Upon pulling his pockets out, he found the necklace to inexplicably appear amongst his belongings. Clarita snatched the necklace from his hand. She threatened him, saying, "Don't worry me anymore, or it will be your neck." Captain Guinibi shrugged Clarita off because he was not afraid of her.
Yeah, he's like, whatever, you're literally crawling around on my floor, like meowing like a cat.
I don't care if you pulled the necklace out of my pocket. Whatever.
You're literally like 90 pounds, like 4 feet tall, 90 pounds.
Yeah, well, Filipinos is feisty.
She's like, has a gun.
I was scared as hell. My grandma, yeah, no. My grandma had the home defense machete under the sofa, dude.
You're like, okay, you're emaciated, you're malnourished, supposedly,
and
allegedly.
She just like beheads him.
Yeah.
So this happened. He wasn't afraid. But the following day, news spread about the sudden death of Dr. Manuel Ramos, the doctor who examined Clarita less than 24 hours before. According to rumors, Dr. Ramos...
Sorry, I don't mean that. The deep voice is what got me.
According to rumor, Dr. Ramos offended Clarita. He was saying that she was hoaxing and lying for attention and using this possession thing to get out of her prostitution charges. Captain Antonio Guinbini, I thought it was Guibini.
I think it's Guinibi. I think I put the B in the wrong place.
Oh. So, Captain Antonio felt that the demons inside Clarita were responsible for Dr. Ramos's death. A few days later, she was asked to draw her attackers, but she was unable to draw them due to supernatural interference. Witnesses watched the pencil in her hand fly across the room. And this time there were dozens of witnesses, including reporters, officials, medical personnel. And then the second time they tried to get her to do it, she balled up the paper and ate it. So it just didn't happen.
Right. Well, it's like also like she's a super childish person who seems to have a lack of control at this time. I could see her eating the paper just because she's like being defiant and like oppressed and possessed by.
Do you think she threw the pencil, or do you think it flew out of her hand like they said?
I don't know. I mean, it's like you have like all these people in the room, and I feel like from the recreations that I saw, it was like she was holding it and then it was just like whoop whoop like out of her hand. Like it wasn't she was like or anything. Like I'm making motions with my hand. Like you can't see it, listener.
Yeah, she wasn't like throwing.
She wasn't flicking her wrist. I guess it just was like very poltergeist.
Okay. But she did eat the paper.
Yeah, she ate that.
That was her.
She swallowed that. She's malnourished. She's hungry. Are they even feeding her?
No.
She might be refusing to eat too.
Oh, fair. Yeah, that does happen a lot with possession stuff. But after that attack, that bizarre behavior, Mayor Arsenio Laxon ordered that Clarita be brought to the city morgue. He wanted to examine her himself.
The mayor?
Yeah.
Of Manila.
Which is weird. He's like, I'm the mayor. Come to the morgue so I can take a look at you.
Alfonso's
like,
here too.
Fuck? Yeah.
He probably didn't want her to come to his home or office.
No, that's fair. He's like, go where all the dead people are, where no one will get hurt.
Literally.
So she got brought there, and within 15 minutes, she had a fit. And he restrained her, keeping her from, quote, hurting herself. But without cause, bite marks appeared on her fingers and neck. And the mayor declared the bite marks were not made by her, as he was holding her hands when she was bitten. Dozens upon dozens of credible witnesses agreed that Clarita Villanueva was in the midst of a real-life battle between good and evil and was in need of religious intervention. But help was on the way.
Hell yeah.
In the form of a white guy, of course.
Oh, my white savior.
Yes,
my
yes,
white
yes.
savior.
The white man cometh.
The white man cometh.
What a terrible song. What a terrible time.
Yeah, I know. I have lots of opinions. We'll talk about it.
I too.
I can't
wait.
Anyways, I can't wait to get mad. Neither can I. I love getting mad. It's my favorite. So sometime around May 17th, which is my little sister's birthday.
That's your little sister's birthday?
Uh-huh.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. An American Pentecostal pastor named Lester Sumrall eventually caught wind of Clarita Villanueva.
Hate it already.
Yeah.
Oh, more family history.
Oh.
Regarding the Philippines. My dad's dad was a pastor.
Oh.
So white guy.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's family was super racist towards my mom and her family. But then...
Wait, your grandfather's father was white?
My dad's dad.
Oh, your dad's dad.
Yeah, I might have misspoke.
Sorry.
My dad's dad is white because my dad's white.
Yeah.
But so he was a pastor, and like my white family didn't like my brown family, right? But then, like within the new millennium, it was post 2000, my white grandpa went to the Philippines for a mission trip, and from what I understand, has a secret family now because he like knocked up a Filipino lady.
Oh my God.
Which is hilarious to me.
Oh my God.
Because he was probably mean to my mom because he wanted to fuck her. Because that's what like old pastors are like.
Oh my God.
I hope this guy's not like that. I hope this old white missionary pastor isn't like that. They're
Well,
never like that.
That's insane, and that's some crazy lore. You have some
Thank
really
you.
crazy family lore
That's what that podcast lore is about.
your family.
Yeah. All those stories are just things that happened to me.
Literally. He was an American Pentecostal pastor named Lester Sumrall. He eventually caught wind of Clarita Villanueva, the demon-possessed vampire girl of old Billy Prison. Lester was driving with his wife, Louise, when he turned on the radio for a little tunage. Coincidentally, he tuned in for a 45-minute broadcast that basically put them in the right place at the right time. It just so happened that Sumrall and his wife were actually not hearing this story in America, but they themselves were in Manila. And this 45-minute broadcast was aired on radio station DZFM, an English-speaking current affairs and talk show station in the capital, specifically. The one thing that kind of bothers me about this is that this happened around May 17th, and the news of the attacks had been around since May 10th. So it had been a week, and he lives in Manila, and he's like, I haven't heard about this.
Yeah, especially as a pastor.
Yeah. Well, he was an evangelist,
Mm-hmm.
and no one wanted an evangelist there.
Yeah.
So Lester Sumrall and his wife were in the Philippines because they were missionaries, basically. In the early 1940s, Sumrall was a missionary in South America, which is where he met his wife, and they married in 1944. And together, they became traveling missionaries, always doing missionary. So eventually, they toured Southeast Asia, and this included going to the Philippines. And in the summer of 1948, Sumrall decided to build a church in Manila. Thus, Manila became their home. The announcer introduced the story of Clarita Villanueva, and then it was followed by shocking recordings of Clarita's attacks. And then Dr. Mariano Lara was interviewed at the end of it. Lara kind of downplayed the situation and shared opinions and explanations from esteemed medical professionals that had been present during some of these. He dismissed sensationalized details of the attacks. But Dr. Lara's voice was shaky on the airwaves. He did not share what he had seen that day, the mysterious bite marks not caused by Alfonso.
He just never mentioned it?
He never mentioned it. He literally hopped on this English news station and was like, yes, this is happening. This is happening to this girl. Here's her talking about it. Here's her screaming. But it's not a big deal. It's psychosomatic. We're going to figure it out. It's not demons. But
he's seen it. Yeah.
He's seen it and he knows, but he's there to kind of do damage control, I think. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Sumrall was captivated by the story, just like everybody else. And he was shocked by Clarita's description of the thing. And he was disgusted by the details of her attacks. And he felt like he was haunted by her screams. She's all like that. So by the end of the show, Sumrall came to the conclusion that Clarita could only be saved by the Lord of the Christian faith.
Okay.
I mean, they're Catholic, but
But that's not Christian God.
It's not.
That's different.
It's not Pentecostal evangelism.
Wait.
Evangelist.
Evaginal?
Evaginal.
Linda Evangelista? Huh?
Whoa.
Is this the story of how my parents met? It's my Catholic mom who's and then my dad who's all white. And they pop out three degenerates.
Mentally ill.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Sumrall would say, quote, I turned to my wife and said, that girl is not sick, and the doctors are helpless before such an enemy.
This is a great voice. I just want you to know.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Her cry is the cry of the damned and doomed. The girl is demon possessed. It was impossible for me to sleep after listening to the program. I walked the floor crying to God to deliver the poor girl in the city jail. But the longer I prayed, the heavier the load. The heavier the load became upon my soul.
You had a load come on your soul. Gay.
I said, oh God.
Oh God.
Oh, I said, oh God. Oh God. I said, oh God, if the devil's in that girl, you can cast him out. Please do it. After praying until morning, God spoke to my heart.
Aw.
He said, if you will go to the jail and pray for her, I will deliver her. But I didn't want to go. I found myself answering, no, God, I could never go to that place. That was like totally Forrest Gump. I can never go to that place. Or I don't know. I can never go to that place. Scientists, professors, legal experts, and even spiritualists have been trying to help that girl. And I'm just a fucking loser, white fucking evangelicist who isn't like real. No, that's not what he said. Scientists, professors, legal experts, and even spiritualists have been trying to help that girl. And they have all had adverse publicity in the newspapers. I cannot go.
God, I can't go. It's going to make me look bad.
I care only about my reputation, not her deliverance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about that. I mean, she's not sick. I'm just more worried about being right about
Amen,
God
brother.
and the Lord.
Amen.
God, I hate him. The Lord replied, if you will go and pray for her, I will deliver her. My reply was still no, but I found I could no longer pray for her. When I cried for her deliverance, my conscience stopped me, saying, you are not sincere. You refuse to go and see her. Finally, I decided to go to Old Billabid prison and pray for the girl.
That is so righteous of him.
I know. That was
Such
too
a
much.
Cunt.
He is like a total
That's such
cunt.
a
Like,
fucking bitch story.
I know.
Shut up.
Literally. Pastor Lester Sumrall was determined to aid the cure for Clarita's demonic oppression. And he decided it was his duty to do more than just pray, because he would eventually perform an exorcism on her.
Okay, because you can just do that.
Right. There are tons of sources, including himself.
Okay.
That, there are claims that he was actually a well-known and successful exorcist in the 1950s, and that he was gifted with the ability to perform miracles. But it's just not substantiated. There's no evidence. This is a total Pentecostal move.
Dude, he said it, though.
Total evangelist.
He's a man of...
I can't say evangelist.
There you go.
Evangelical. Evangelist. When I'm trying to talk, when I try, I can do it. When I'm talking, I can't.
But he's a man of the Lord. He wouldn't lie or do anything for like money or reputation. So pretty sure he's telling the truth.
We'll get back to it. Okay. So basically, it was not too difficult for Sumrall to gain access to Clarita. He actually had a pretty large network, and his church architect actually organized a meeting with the mayor on May 19th.
That's convenient.
Yeah. The mayor had just witnessed the supernatural attack. This had just happened. And the mayor mentioned that other spiritualists had met with her, but they claimed that their efforts were failures. So Sumrall promised to deliver Clarita from evil by means of a treatment. Quote unquote treatment. That's what he says. So treatment is used in many reports, but really it is an exorcism. I don't know why they say treatment. I think it's because saying exorcism is incredibly controversial. But the mayor was like, sure, Slay Queen, do the treatment. And gave her access to Clarita. Gave him access to Clarita. But it was only under a few conditions. Sumrall had to prove his treatment was the right one, and he had to take full responsibility for any harm that may result from this treatment. So whether it be harm to himself, Clarita, or anyone else, he would be held responsible, probably legally, criminally held responsible. So Sumrall agreed, and he made his way to Old Billabid prison to meet with Dr. Lara and Clarita. We have to ask ourselves, like, regardless of the mayor's approval, And Sumrall's promises to save Clarita, was he even qualified as an evangelist?
Well, I mean, I doubt it.
Yeah.
But to answer that, let's begin by understanding what exactly it means to be possessed and what an exorcism is. Exorcism has roots in a variety of cultures and religions, all with different rites, but we'll be focusing here on the Catholic and Christian rites of exorcism, since that's,
What we're talking
what
about.
this is about.
Yeah.
In Christianity, possession is understood as a rare phenomenon where a person's body is believed to be taken over by a demonic entity. Possession begins with demonic oppression, and it eventually escalates to possession. And exorcism is defined basically as an ancient religious spiritual practice of expelling these malevolent entities from a person or area that's believed to be possessed or infested. So where did the practice of exorcism come from? Allegedly, Jesus was the first exorcist.
So slay.
It's like, I just saw that movie,
The first
Omen.
Yeah.
And he was not in that exorcising anything. So yeah, allegedly Jesus was the first exorcist. And in the Bible, he expelled demons from his apostles. Probably meant he was jacking them off, but like whatever.
So hot.
Nice. I've never looked into it, by the way, but I'm sure the Jesus gay fan fiction fandom is piping hot. There's probably so much shit in there.
I need to tell you something that is
Did you look up Jesus fan fiction?
No. It's a highly debated and like argued.
That Jesus was gay?
No. In Christianity, that like, so part of like crucifixion torture is humiliation. So like, because of like your suffocation that happens when you're crucified, your dick gets hard and you ejaculate. And Jesus did ejaculate
when he came on the cross.
Yeah.
That's fucking dope.
And people are like, that didn't happen. Our Christ did not get humiliated like that. And it's like, I'm sorry, but he was like splooging as he was like dying.
Damn,
like,
dude. He probably
hard.
shitted it later too.
Like, I don't know if it was like an orgasm, but like
he expelled.
Like being like a holy figure that's like incredibly pure and like never had sex, which like isn't true. Like that is like extreme humiliation. I did not know that. And people are like
so mad about it. I'm sure.
Oh, there's some people who are like, you cannot deny that happened to Christ, and you denying that happened to Christ is blasphemous, because you need to recognize
what he went through.
What he went through and that humiliation. And other people are like, I don't think about ejaculation because that's gay.
Oh my God, that's wild.
Isn't that crazy?
Christianity is fucking wild.
I am glad I told you that.
Me too.
It's like one of my favorite factoids.
I love that.
Anyway.
It's okay. So, Jesus's alleged work in exorcism contributed to shaping the elements of early ritual within the church and with believers. So like the use of Jesus's name, the sign of the cross, exsufflation, which is basically like blessing by breathing on a person's face.
Which is
like,
crazy. I've never heard of that.
I've seen televangelists do it.
Yeah.
Where they go, and then they grab their head and push them.
And they're like, no! And then they're not blind anymore for like, allegedly.
Yeah. For the camera, they're not blind. And then there's like laying hands. So like touching the person, that like faith healing type shit.
Yeah.
And invoking the Holy Spirit in general through scripture, prayer, and fasting, and
yeah,
all that.
Because that's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
To ramp up his powers.
He also cummed in front of his enemies. Just like power
on
move.
The cross.
You know, I don't have a problem with Jesus.
Next to like two thieves or something. Or?
Yeah, like some hose, and he's just coming
all over the faces of like the Romans.
Power move though, like hell
he's
yeah,
like, oh, and they're like,
that for the listener, that it wasn't like Amber was not doing like a shocked face. Amber was doing like a delighted, like catching the cum on the tongue face. Go,
That's what they were doing.
They did do that.
The Romans loved cum, and
they did. Yeah,
they did, and children too much. They loved them too much. Anyway,
moving on.
Let's go.
So, in regard to Christian exorcism, every branch of Christianity differs on this. The most well-known or recognized practice of exorcism is the Ritual Romanum of the Roman Catholic faith. And this is kind of like what you see in movies and shit, basically, dumbed down. Catholics view exorcism as an esoteric rite, and it's not something just anyone can perform. In modern times, like realistically, Catholics take exorcisms very seriously, and they often approach possession claims with caution and skepticism. Exorcism as a process is heavily regulated with an established protocol, only conducted by qualified bishops that are appointed to this office, to this position. And these bishops are educated and trained in the practice of the rites of exorcism.
And also in demonology.
Yeah.
They're
very, there's a lot that goes into being qualified to do an exorcism.
I mean, just like how like people who become
surgeons.
Yeah. Or I mean, even priests who go to the monastery, like they still have to go to school. They still have to get an education in like theology. Like I think it's like religious theology. Yeah. And then if you're going to become an exorcist, like through the church, you have to
learn all about exorcism and demons.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, it's actually like you have to be qualified, very much so. And then you have to be a bishop as well.
Back to the modern view is there's minor possessions, which are also known as oppressions, which I have seen Zach Bagans suffer so many times.
Oppressions are scary too, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I think ever happened to me supernatural was an oppression, and that sucked. Dick.
Yeah, because oppression is like very conceptual, but it's oppression.
Yeah, it's basically like
Emotional.
Strong demonic influence over your life, basically.
Yeah, that like escalates.
You and your life, yeah.
Yeah.
Where you're not like, there's something inside me making me clap my hands and wave.
It's like totally
just
different.
Like influence. That's
Yeah. They're separated, really.
Yeah. So that's minor possession or oppression. And then there's major possession, which is like what you think of when someone says, I'm possessed,
right.
Is that there's like a demon inside of someone. And major possessions require diagnosis, basically, by the archdiocese and then approval by the archdiocese to actually perform an exorcism.
And also for reference, since we're just talking about Zach Bagans, I just want to say there is a bishop that works closely with the Ghost Adventures crew. Yeah. Bishop, I want to say his name is Bishop Breyer.
I think it's Father Breyer.
No, he's a bishop.
Oh, there's a bishop?
He's Bishop Breyer.
I'm thinking of a father then too that they work with, but
the big fat guy?
Maybe.
Because Bishop Breyer is kind of hot.
You gotta fly. Because I think I'm thinking of the father who works with that lady.
Sister Mary John, the lesbian. Yeah, because they have to work in pairs. That's like part of their.
But there's a bishop who's different.
There's like one from the earlier seasons that's like really sweaty. But Bishop, but he Bishop Breyer, I don't remember his name, has like glasses and he's kind of like a little bit hot.
Okay.
But he's qualified. He's a demonologist, qualified bishop, and he's able to perform like exorcisms in regard to oppressions because he can use his best discretion on that, but he has to he interviews the people who are allegedly being oppressed pretty extensively. And he also is just he can kind of determine whether or not I think this is just really extreme mental illness or this is oppression. Yeah. And Sister Mary John is always there. She's so slay. I hope she can live her real life one day. 'Cause she's a lesbian for sure. But it's a really, really good example of what modern day exorcisms look like, honestly. And I know it's Ghost Adventures, which can be sort of the most extra shit in the world. But at least Bishop, I don't remember name, and Sister Mary John the lesbian are real people who are really Catholic, who work in the church, who are
an exorcist
qualified,
team, basically.
Yeah. So if we're going to compare people on TV,
that's fair. If it's Zach Bagans versus the bishop,
literally.
And I would probably have the bishop do an exorcism.
Or that fucking one pastor who is like, I'll never fly on the tube with those demons in the sky. Like,
oh yeah, guy. I just watched videos of him the other day.
What's his name? We're going to talk about him too.
Kenneth,
bitch ass.
Anyway. Yeah. So back to...
Sorry.
That's okay. Back to different possessions. We're going to talk more about major possession because that's what Clarita was allegedly suffering. So regardless of the possessed person's religious beliefs, the possessed person is required to submit to a medical evaluation first. This is to rule out medical or psychological conditions. Makes sense. Churches believe generally that mental illness is way more the likely culprit because it's so super common and easy to mistake mental illness as a possession.
Yeah. And they recognize that possession is rare. Like, it is incredibly rare. Major possessions are incredibly rare.
Right. And yeah, just mental illness manifests really similarly.
Yeah.
They look similar. You've probably seen a million movies about that. But if the patient is deemed to be mentally healthy, then the church follows with a mandatory spiritual diagnosis. So after the medical, there's the spiritual. And the possessed person requires a thorough assessment by a qualified bishop. So it's like you were saying about the dudes on Ghost Adventures. They have a guy come in to actually assess and determine, okay, are you actually possessed?
Yeah.
And to be diagnosed, you have to display a range of certain characteristics and symptoms. So the less severe, more common, not supernatural characteristics are an abrupt change in behavior or personality.
Which is, Clarita does have that, so that's one.
Totally. Sudden spiritual dryness.
Yes.
Which, yeah, so like the spiritual well has
dried.
Yeah. So, yeah. Aversion to holy objects or places such as holy water or churches.
No. She did not.
Yeah, she's like meeting with these religious figures and is fine.
Yeah.
So.
And chaplains and has a crucifix necklace.
Right. And she was looking for it. Yeah. Self-harming and displays of violent behavior.
We're unsure.
Unsure. Yeah. Because she's thrashing, but that could be as a response to something.
Yeah.
Refusing to eat or drink.
We're unsure. Mm-hmm. She ate the paper, so maybe not.
Having hallucinations or hearing voices.
Yes. So that's 3 out of those.
Yeah, out of 7-ish.
Right.
So those are the less severe characteristics. The more severe characteristics are unusual strength and resistance during restraint. Unknown.
Ish. Yeah.
Ailments or conditions that cannot be diagnosed or treated medically.
Yes. So that's 4.
Mm-hmm. Speaking languages they do not know. Yes. Obtaining hidden knowledge of events or people, etc.
Yes. I mean, because she was like, it's in your pocket.
Right. Yeah. So having weird like omniscience. Expelling of objects or unusual fluids from the mouth.
Unknown.
And then supernatural abilities like psychokinesis, levitation, telekinesis, that kind of shit.
Yeah. Which is like...
But unknown, you know.
That's kind of unknown too.
Yeah.
Unless you consider the bite marks, if it is psychosomatic, but in a supernatural, paranormal
yeah, in
way.
like I'm causing them to manifest.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah. Which is like, we can't determine that at this time. Mm-hmm. So that's 6. I mean, and most of those are severe, rare, supernatural characteristics.
Mm-hmm. So if a variety of these characteristics are met, then there's a request for an exorcism that can be submitted. If an exorcism is approved, it is required that the ritual is overseen by other religious figures, basically as like assistants or witnesses.
Yeah, like Sister Mary John.
Yeah, so like a priest or a nun that's appointed office to assist an exorcist. And then there's secular medical professionals and family members. They need a lot of people there.
Yeah.
So how is an exorcism performed? It is performed in a safe space. There's a presence of holy objects like rosaries, crucifixes, religious statues, and things like that. And there is a specific Latin prayer that is spoken. The person's dashed with holy water. They're subject to laying hands, but only by the bishop or another office official. And usually possessed or oppressed people require multiple exorcisms. And not only are there like many sessions that can go into exorcisms, but it can also take a long time in a session as well. And then they're going to come back next month and they're going to do it again.
Right. It's like a continuous, like you have
It's a treatment plan, essentially.
Yeah. And it's also like, you know, we talk about how Clarita would go into these fits and then they would subside. Mm-hmm. And it's like during, if she were to be under a Catholic exorcism at that time, basically, at least from what I've seen, a bishop would be like, that's enough for the day. Like they will not continue to lay hands and like not antagonize, but like they will not continue the treatment as soon as like
when a certain point is reached. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you can't keep going. It's like it's subsiding. She's not suffering in this fit anymore. Like it will hurt her.
Yeah. Like, let's leave it and we'll come back.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why there's so many rules set in place.
Yeah. Yeah. Exorcism is not exactly like in PG-13 movies.
Right.
Where it's like, I go in, I yell at you, and there's things flying around, and then you're healed.
Right.
Like, it's not like that. So when it comes to Clarita, her symptoms, as we said, they indicate major possession probably. And at the time, 1953, Catholic exorcisms were being performed. In fact, there was a similar possession case that was even more publicized and widespread than Clarita's, which occurred several years before, in 1925. And that was the case of Eleonora Zugan, I think.
I don't know.
Zugan? Anyway,
Zugan, I
she's
don't know.
Romanian.
Yeah.
They called her the Devil's Girl.
Which is like crazy. It's
Yeah.
like,
Devil's Girl,
Devil's
bitch.
Girl.
It's my drag name.
That's Devil Girl.
So yeah, the exorcism began in 1925 and it lasted years. Eleonora was 11 years old and her attacks began after finding a coin on the roadside. And she was also being bitten by demons. And they were wet, toothy bites on her body and they were documented. And there were multiple witnesses to these attacks and there was also poltergeist activity. Reports would say, quote, an invisible entity caused distinct teeth marks to appear on her wrists, then scores of scratches on her right forearm, cheeks, and forehead.
Which is like scary to see on like an 11-year-old.
Yeah, like who's biting your head, girl?
Literally.
Damn.
Like on your forehead. Like that's
Yeah.
fucking crazy. Sorry. I'm like just imagining getting
wild.
bit on the forehead. There's nothing to bite. Like scary.
Unless the mouth is really big.
Yeah.
It was widely believed that Eleonora was possessed, obviously, and was attacked by a shape-shifting otherworldly entity called a Dracu, right? This is Romania.
Sure. Yeah.
Dracu is like synonymous with the devil. And Eleonora underwent multiple exorcisms. Eventually, she developed stigmata, which, if you don't know, stigmata is like a manifestation of the wounds of Christ.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's like a miracle.
Yeah.
It's being touched. Literally touched by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. So it's like holes through your hands or feet, or like wounds where a crown of thorns would be, or like a stab wound, that kind of shit. So in comparison to Eleonora's case, Clarita's possession was really similar. So it would make sense that Clarita would undergo a Catholic exorcism to be delivered just like Eleonora, but somehow Catholic intervention was superseded by evangelist treatment.
Right.
From fucking Lester bitch balls.
Yeah.
Regardless of the religion, the ritual of expelling demons is historically recognized as an extremely dangerous practice, and there have been fatal consequences.
Yeah, quite literally.
As we mentioned before, like these processes were implemented for reasons.
Yeah.
It's true that people have died in association with Catholic exorcisms, especially pre-1970s, before the ritual Romanum was reformed. For example, we mentioned earlier the 1976 death of Anneliese Michelle Michel. She was 100% medically unwell, but she also displayed multiple signs of possession, and her parents believed she couldn't be medically cured, and she underwent 67 exorcisms over a 4-year span. And she refused to eat for most of these years. She eventually died in 1976 from starvation, and she was only 20 years old. So everyone involved was charged with negligent homicide in that exorcism.
And this was in Germany?
I believe so, yeah.
And this was adapted into the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Mm-hmm. So following Anneliese's death, the Catholic Church started making proper changes to the rites of exorcism. However, the number of deaths by Catholic exorcism cannot be compared to the number of deaths by non-Catholic Christian exorcisms, even in the present. So, trigger warning, this is graphic with child death. But in California, in 2021...
3 years ago.
That is 3 years as of putting out this episode. A 3-year-old girl was killed during an exorcism performed by her family members. And this took place in a Christian-based church in the presence of religious personages. The mother believed that she was possessed because she'd wake up and scream or cry periodically.
Okay.
This is a 3-year-old.
This is a 3-year-old.
No shit.
If you were to take your child and go to a bishop and say, I think that my child is possessed and needs an exorcism, and they were like, why? And it's like, because she cries.
They'd be like, go home.
Yeah, they'd
Don't fucking
they'd
talk to
call
me.
CPS.
Yeah, they'd be like, you're stupid.
They'd be like, you're mentally unwell.
Yeah.
Like, this is
You're
not-
delusional.
Yeah.
My kid's possessed because she cries. And then they're like, okay, we're going to do a religion, or we're going to do an exorcism. So they ended up inducing severe vomiting by putting their hands in her mouth and throat. And that choked her over and over. And then they deprived her of water, and they placed intense pressure on her body with like the laying of hands.
Right. You remember in like Catholic exorcisms, only bishops and their assistants are allowed
Should
to
be
lay
touching
hands.
them. Yeah. And her cause of death was asphyxiation because they're shoving hands down her throat and not giving her water and choking her and crushing her.
Yeah.
The girl's grandfather would say, quote, if you read the Bible, you'll see that Jesus casted away demons and made sick people healthy again. In the case of exorcisms, it's performed not when I want to do it, it's when God in his own will wants to heal the person. The preacher is like an instrument of God. What we do is what God says.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane and like deserves the death penalty.
100%. 1000%.
Like 100%. Like you, or just, I like, that is basically just being like, it's the same thing with fucking, Lori Vallow.
Mm-hmm.
Being like, this is just what is happening. I am just a tool. Like,
Yeah, you're a fucking tool.
yeah, literally. Like,
I'm going to crush you with a boulder.
It's so fucking disturbing. Like, when I saw that quote, I was like,
Yeah, that's fucking gross.
made me want to like vomit. I mean, and you really got to think about it. This girl who died would have been going into preschool or the first grade this year.
That's hideous to think about.
2024. Yeah. Oh, no, it's 2024. So yeah.
Yeah.
She'd be going into kindergarten, learning how to count ABCs, making
No.
friends.
God said no,
Yeah.
actually. So that's Christian exorcism.
Yeah. I mean,
Basically.
not all of it is like that, but it's
Oh,
like
obviously,
because it's not regulated and up to the discretion of
A professional, essentially.
or a pastor, you know, where it's like a mother decided she was possessed because she cries. If it's a Catholic exorcism, you have to go to a medical doctor, a psychiatrist, and then you have to be visited by a bishop as well as their assistant. And then they have to send it up to an archdiocese who says, okay, keep investigating. You have approval. Then they have to come back and keep doing approval. And then they have to send it back and then get it approved for exorcism and then conduct multiple exorcisms for multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just like, well, let's bring her into the church and kill her.
Yeah. I'll have to show you specifically. There's a, you may have seen it. There's a documentary about, I believe they were Maori, possibly.
I've heard of
Have you
this.
seen that documentary?
They rolled her up in a blanket and sat on top of her.
I don't remember if that happened. I know there was like
Oh, maybe this happened.
drowning type
Oh,
situations. There was a lot of things that they did to her. It was
Yeah.
horrific. But it is a very,
I feel like I remember hearing a story about a girl that was in foster care who maybe was Maori or she was like,
okay, no, that wasn't this one.
no, this was something different. Okay. Yeah, there was one that I heard. It was a kid that was in foster care. They like just rolled her up in a blanket and sat on top of her to expel her and they killed her. It was like 6 people. I think they all went to prison.
Good.
Adults. Disgusting. Adults.
The fact that,
Oh God, I can't even think about it. I
yeah,
can't even
no.
think about grown adults like sitting on top of a 3-year-old with their hands in her mouth and she's vomiting and choking.
no, that just like, that's so disturbing and deranged and like,
Demented.
yeah, I don't know how you can,
Say that that's God's will or it's
yeah.
God speaking through you. Like,
That's,
is she
that's
vomit?
just-
Like, yeah, I gotta move on.
yeah, that's fucking gross. So now we understand what exorcism actually is or should be in like Catholicism, you know,
Controlled.
and why.
Yeah.
And that's what exorcism is supposed to be,
Right.
in a Catholic
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
So we can move forward with a firm understanding of Catholic exorcism versus other, let's say, Christian exorcisms, we're going to have to cut it off.
Yeah.
Because next we talk about Clarita's exorcism. And that will lead us into some whole other places.
Yeah.
So
we can't do a 4-hour episode.
No, we got to cut it off. But it'll be good to have that information to mull over going into the next episode.
So we'll see you guys. No, we'll catch you guys.
Jesus, man.
We'll catch you guys not next Thursday, but the following Sunday. So in a couple days on Sunday, right? Is that how that says? What?
No.
So wait, so you say it. You say...
Today's Thursday, Halloween?
Yeah.
See you on Sunday.
We'll see you on Sunday.
I'll catch you on... Fuck.
Oh, we'll catch you
it.
on Sunday for part 2 of Clarita Villanueva's possession. The possession of Clarita Villanueva.
You must return. The power of Christ compels you to return to Radio Grave Podcast.
For church.
Yes, church on Sunday, bud.
Church on Sunday, day of rest.
Wear
day
your
of
best.
Come, wear your best for church.
And
wear a tie, wear your boots, wear your cock ring.
Yeah. The one with the little crucifix on it.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for coming to Radio Graves Season 2 premiere episode, part 1. Yeah. We love you guys. Oh my God.
We're so excited.
I'll catch you on Sunday. Don't get possessed in the meantime.
Yeah.
We need you for November.
I mean, if you do get possessed, there's going to be, there's the exorcism in the next episode, so it's okay.
Yeah. It'll work through the airwaves.
Yeah. We'll catch you then. We'll exercise you then.
We'll catch you guys. Bye. We love you. We love you. So much love. The power of Christ compels this wiener.
Oh my God. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere. It is speculated that these objects are of extraterrestrial origin. The broadcast will quiet at this time for your safety. Continue to carry out the following instructions.
Radio Grave Podcast is hosted by Amber Byland and Dominique Makasuya. Music courtesy of AOA Music, Carl Casey at White Bat Audio, and intro music by Simon Big Byland. Audio mixing and editing by Amber Byland. Logo and original art by Dominique Makasuya. Special thanks to Selma and Obi Henneke, Austin Smith, and all our supporters on Patreon. All other media and sound clips used are protected under fair use and are for the purpose of criticism, commentary, news reporting, education, and research. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.